Hello, hello, and welcome to your first Scoutcast of the season. You are joined by me. My name is Andy.
My name is Joe.
My name is Seb.
Now, you might have noticed that things are a little bit different because it's me talking and not Joe, which I know lots of you are going to be thinking, we don't like this, but you never know. After a couple of weeks, you might. So obviously, it's basically we've done that because you want to be listening to Joe and Seb a little bit more than you want to be listening to me, basically. Yeah, maybe not Joe, but Seb, you definitely want to be listening to. So things are going to be a little bit different this season, but it should be really, really good. We've got lots of lovely things planned. And obviously, Joe, have you had a good off season? You've been enjoying yourself?
I have. You've missed out a bit I put in the notes. So I still do.
He's backseat hosting already.
I still do the notes and all the wonderful graphics that are about to be displayed. But there's a bit in the notes. Second paragraph. It says add in.
Something about excellence that take up most of the show or something like that.
Yeah. It said, meanwhile, Joe and Seb are the brilliant, amazing FPL experts whose excellence will take up most of the show. Also, Joe's
don't know why I skipped that bit.
Only because we talk so much.
Yeah, I know.
But Joe, you had a good pre-season.
I have had a good pre-season. Now, hopefully, as one of the photos we will show in the show is of my team, but in the team of actually how it is, and that's in book form, and there's hardly any players penciled in, quite literally. So hopefully we'll show that. So that's what I've been doing, FPL tinkering, but also been on holiday and all those types of things as well.
Yeah, lovely stuff. And Seb, what about you?
What about me? What?
You had a lovely summer.
Yeah, it's been okay. I mean, as you know, you've got twice the trouble I have. It's been raising a small potato into a small human, basically. As we were talking about before the show, he's just sort of in between crawling and walking now, which is hilarious. He's determined to put himself in the most danger possible at all times.
Good man. They don't stop doing that either.
So I've heard.
Yeah, they do not stop. And I've had a lovely summer. I mean, most of them have seen me on videos anyway with Praz. But obviously I've gone from Praz, who he's okay, to the dream team, which is exactly what I want to be doing now. So that's lovely stuff. Joe, you are going to tell us what is coming up on tonight's show, though.
Yes, indeed. No fuss or nonsense. We're just going to get stuck straight into our team reveals. We're going to be peppering them throughout the show, and the last minute challenges we're facing. Also, the stats we're looking at along the way. I think pretty much all of us have probably changed our teams since we've submitted the teams here, but I think that's the way with everyone. But we can at least discuss the sort of teams we possibly got, possibly thinking about, and the players in the frame. New community team format. So more of that later. We'll finish off the show with some quick fire questions, but that's going to be a little different this time as well. So more of that later.
Lovely stuff. And for all those in the chat, thank you so much for joining us. I've seen quite a few in the chat that we recognise from last year, and hopefully we'll see a few new names as well. For those people that are listening to the pod as well, thank you so much. We will make sure that we read out anything that's on the screen, so if you're listening on the pod, you don't miss out on all the important stuff that we talk about. Before we get started and jump into the teams as well, just very, very quickly, myself, I've been a manager for God knows how long. Not quite as good as these two here, but I make up for it in smiles. Joe, talk us through your 100% finishing in the 100k history.
101k, I think you'll find. Yes, indeed. That's the new challenge everyone wants to get, top 101k finish. So that's me every year. So yeah, I've been playing for donkey's years and also creating content in written form and video and podcast for about a decade now. Way back when the Scoutcast was just Mark and Granville, and they invited me on, and I've been here ever since. I've had 7 top 10k finishes, not many recently, but still doing okay. Onwards and upwards. And this season, back in the top 10k, maybe.
Good man. And Seb, talk us through yours very quickly.
Sure. I get rank history out of the way. Few top 5Ks, 1.7 last year, I think, although like 100K the year before that. So meh, whatever. And I think what's more interesting than rank history, because, you know, that could be luck as much as anything, is approach to the game. So I would say that I naturally am like very impulsive and sort of quite led by emotions, which is why I then deliberately veer towards the sort of trying to take an analytical approach to try and remedy that. So what you'll probably see me do is refer to numbers a lot, refer to the cognitive biases, and try and remove that part from myself so that I can make better decisions. Sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't, and I'll end up going with luck and vibes anyway. And Leeds. I'm a Leeds fan. I do some research for Leeds, so I will talk about Leeds every now and again. Sometimes it'll be FPL relevant, sometimes it won't. And 2 years ago, when we first got promoted and I finished 130k or something, I think it really was Leeds that did me in. Speaking of those, leading with emotion, I was unable to avoid that bias. Although weirdly, I went against Leeds rather than for us. Didn't have Dallas, didn't have Bamford, didn't have Rafinha, and it cost me badly.
Oh, proper little poo sandwich that was. Put the Leeds thing in the middle, and I like that. Right, so let's jump straight into it then. And thank you so much for everybody in the chat that's saying welcome back, guys, and hello. We are so happy to be back. Right, so we're going to jump straight into Seb's team. Now, Seb, you took a little while to get this team to us, didn't you? Because you've been kind of tinkering and you were kind of waiting to make sure you knew what you wanted.
Because I wanted a machine to make the decisions for me.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say that, but yes. But if I just talk through your team quickly, and then you will obviously tell us why you've gone for these players. So we've got Ramsdale in goal, then we've got Trent Alexander-Arnold, Cancelo, James, Walker, and Doherty. So you've got 5 at the back. Then we've got Salah captain, Luis Diaz, Martinelli, Haaland, and Jesus. You've got Ward, who obviously I think a lot of people are going to start having Ward in their team soon. Neco Williams, Andreas Pereira, Greenwood, and you have got 0 in the bank. So just talk us through, however you want to talk us through it, your team and why you've set up the way you have.
So the reason Joe looks confused is because this is actually the updated team, which I guess is a good thing.
Yeah,
but I did send through another one previously. It's much of a muchness. The thing I'm moving towards, and this is where I guess the previous team comes in, is I like this idea of somewhere between a 4-4-2 and a 5-3-2. I'm a big fan of the big at the back. Before prices revealed and everything, we said, Andy, that I'd definitely be going for this. Although with the prices, it's not really a thing anymore. Like everyone's going to have, So I'll get into the details of the players in a moment. But the previous draft that I sent through, the 4-4-2, pretty similar, but it had like Cancelo and Walker at the back and Trent and Robbo. And it had Mount in midfield. There's the 8 million over Luis Diaz, obviously because I had Robbo in, and then I had no James. So you can see there's definitely a theme there, right? I've just swapped between a few people. I was starting Bailey as well because I was benching another defender, which is Neco Williams. I think we should talk about those budget sort of bench options a bit later in your teams. Mm-hmm. You can save that, but there's some interesting things there. So yeah, the thinking with this team is the idea to go between a 4-4-2 and a 5-3-2. Yes, based on fixtures, but actually more than anything, I think there's a lot of players in there that we're all going to have, both us three here and everyone listening. We don't need to say why Salah's there, Haaland, Kane, whatever your preference is, even the goalkeepers, even most of the defenders. So for me, it comes down to like your Walkers, your Dohertys, even Reece James and Leon Bailey. So the thinking between this sort of 4-4-2, 5-3-2 structure is I can start say, Doherty here. And if I'm wrong in my assessment, which is roughly that I actually think for 0.5 cheaper than Perisic, he could be a go. Now, this is a gamble. I'm not saying copy me. But he has, off the top of my head, it was 0.44 XGI last season, which is the same as Perisic in Serie A and up there with Trent Alexander-Arnold, although, of course, in a much smaller sample size. Most people's argument is the competition at right wing back, but we've got Spence, who we know Conte said isn't an option. Emerson, who, he's very clearly second best. And then Lucas Moura played there a bit in pre-season, but he really didn't last year at all. And I don't think he's going to spend time there, even with Richarlison joining. Whereas Perisic is older, has more minutes under his belt over his career, and does have good competition in Ryan Sessegnon. So I would say with that 0.5, there's a little gamble that I want Doherty here rather than Perisic. Neither of the Spurs boys is probably an option, but I wonder if maybe, emotions over logic here perhaps, I want one of them because I don't have Kane in this draft. So I just want some sort of tapping into Tottenham. And then the other one is Leon Bailey, who again is a risk in minutes himself, but I think has high upside. And that's if I'm wrong on both of them, bad times. But if I'm right on one of them, they come in and I've got that 12th man, I guess, to cover me until I wildcard in game week 8 or 9 until I make some transfers.
I think.
And then Joe.
No, I was just going to say, you keep saying if I'm wrong, but I think this is the season where you can be wrong because we're all going to wildcard so early because we have unlimited transfers during the World Cup. So we're all going to wildcard early. So you can be wrong. So you're going to make that move. I just wanted to sort of make that clear. Hopefully other people watching will think it's okay to be wrong. And it is okay to be wrong this season.
Yeah. Someone in the chat just said the screen shows 2 different benches. I'm guessing that's kind of what I mentioned.
Yeah.
Which is
yeah.
where
So
I did submit 2 teams. Yeah.
Yeah. You put the new team on, so I put this new team on top of the old one, and obviously it's got the old bench on the old graphic there. But it's that team that we've got up there. But I can put your the other team up if you want me to.
Yeah. So I mean, don't worry about it. I think we've explained it. I guess the last thing I'd cover is the 8 million mid bracket. I think is important for everyone to have access to. I've got Diaz here. I actually really like Mason Mount, but I've gone without Robbie here. Got Diaz because no Jota. And then obviously there's James. If it looks like James is going to be centre back or even get rotated a lot, I'd probably switch that back around. But I'm happy with that little gamble now, knowing that it's an easy swap. And then, until we talk about benches later, I think that's probably me.
So I was just looking at this. One of the things I was looking about is a lot of people are thinking Haaland or Kane. I mean, I've seen a few teams with both, but I think in many cases people are thinking Haaland or Kane. So Kane makes sense in game week 1, Haaland makes sense in game week 2, and Kane makes sense in game week 3. So I guess you're sort of if you go for Kane now, you're possibly locking in a transfer. Is that your thought behind going for Haaland straight away?
I mean, it's genuinely coin flip territory. Like in the models, whichever one you give the better minutes to comes out on top. That's how close it is. And I think that's the same for most of us in our heads, right? I've got Haaland in this one simply because, I maybe don't want to play that hokey cokey. And I do think if you gave them both equal minutes, Haaland does come out on top, although I think Kane gets more. I could easily end up on Kane because, like you say, good for game week 1, maybe a game week 3 captain. It's just Bournemouth that is scary. And the other reason, actually, maybe more than that I could end up away from Haaland, although I could fix this by losing Walker, who we know his place isn't set from when, say, when Laporte is back and Stones isn't quite fit yet. I expect him to play first couple, but then we'll see. They're not signing Cucurella anymore. But for me, I want Foden. I don't want him immediately. We can wait on him. There's no rush. But I do want Foden eventually. And obviously, I have 3 City, so I'll need to solve that. So maybe I lose Walker or I end up with Kane rather than Haaland. There's also Saka, of course, in that 8 million bracket. But I've got Martinelli. Not saying he can cover him, but I've got 3 Arsenal otherwise. And I think I would rather give that 8 million slot to Mount or Diaz just for team structure.
I think James is someone we'll get to my team. I'm thinking about putting in as well because Chelsea is set to sign Cucurella, who will fit in that as cover and left back, but also left centre of the defence there. So that does mean that James could be.
I don't think I would do this, but would you look at Cucurella then for 5.0?
I could be. But I don't know whether he's definitely going to sign. I think he is. Also, I don't know whether he's going to play. It's going to take them a week or 2 to bed him in. I mean, I think he's great, but I don't know whether the Chelsea hierarchy think that. Presumably, because they're going to buy him. So at the moment, it's lots of ifs and buts. I need to hear the press conferences towards the end of the week for that one. But I do think potentially if he's going to be a sure starter in the Chelsea defence for 5 million, and he's great. Brighton's player of the year last season.
Yeah. One thing, I mean, I'm ashamed he didn't go to City because that would have been quite tasty. We might have had to give it a couple of weeks, but that could have been good. One thing that I would say on that, and it's kind of relevant to some of the decisions I've made here, is by all means go for some X-Men's gamble, educated guesses on who's going to do better than other people think in terms of minutes. But realistically, and I've tried to do it with my 4-4-2, 5-3-2 structure here, the old, there was a video from Paddy Power the other day taking the mick out of this, but it's true, right? You don't win FPL in the first few weeks, but you can fall behind. It's not about breaking the template. The template is great this year because players are so cheap and people are clued in. You don't need to gamble. For example, Foden. I want him. I think he's going to be great. I don't need to gamble yet. I don't need to be first to him. I can get him in 2 weeks when we know he's playing, when we know Grealish has dropped out or he's playing on the right. So I've tried not to take too many gambles, but a couple that give me a little upside.
Yeah. It's interesting. Genuinely, I think majority of that team, you can't really argue with. It's just Walker and Doherty for me. They're the only two. For me, I don't see the upside of Walker to warrant going with the risk of him maybe not playing. That's the biggest thing for me. I think I'd rather have someone like Gabriel or Trippier or something like that at least has got a bit of upside and got the rest of it there with them. And I suppose Doherty is just, I think I would try and find that extra 0.5 to have Perisic. That's the thing for me.
So I think, the 0.5, maybe. I think it's tough to weak from this side unless I'm going 4.5 defenders.
Unless you change Walker to 4.5, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Which is valid. But then I think it's a player combination thing. So it's like Ramsdale and Walker or Edison and Ben White or something like that. So I think Walker isn't in isolation. It's about, especially considering, I've got a triple there, I think. It's combinations of prices, but also maximum players from teams. And I'm trying to optimize that, even if Walker on his own isn't the best bet. And I do think for the first few weeks, they don't have any other defenders. So even if just for 2 or 3 weeks, Walker could be okay. And Man City's defense is clear. All of the models want you to have double, if not triple, Man City defense. They are going to score huge points over the course of the season.
But I think I'd play Bailey over Walker there, see?
Would you?
I would, because Walker, he's probably going to get you 6 points, but West Ham away isn't that easy, is it? And whereas Bailey, that's away, is it away to Bournemouth, isn't it?
Yeah. So I guess you're going for, again, to use that word, I guess, upside ceiling there, where if Bailey does start, if he does score or whatever, whereas Walker, as soon as he concedes, bad times. No. I guess the 5 subs maybe comes in here a bit, and how we think managers are going to use those. I think Bailey, if he doesn't start, definitely comes on. Mm-hmm. Walker, if he doesn't start, he probably doesn't come on. Pep has, we don't know what he's going to do this year, but in recent season and a half or so, he's done less rotation in a match itself to rest players, and more just 90 on, 90 off. So 90 minutes, 0 minutes, 90 minutes, like that. So if Walker didn't start for whatever reason, if it's Stones at right back and then the other 3 as we expect, I wonder if he may not come on at all and might get access to Bailey anyway. So I think this way around possibly gives me the highest chance of accessing points, even if it's not the highest ceiling, if that makes sense.
Interesting. I think, it's obviously, it's your team. But I think for me, I would, if I'm already thinking I would play Bailey over Walker, I'd then probably just downgrade Walker and have him as a rotation option.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
But I know some people like Neto as well. And then I probably don't want 5.5 as my first bench. Then I'd probably be looking at a 4-4-2 to start him. So then maybe Walker becomes Nico Williams, as I'm sure we'll discuss later. I think the big attraction there is you've got a nailed playing, relatively attacking, even if not a good defense, cheap defender. It's hard, even though I have here gone without him, it's hard not to access that value.
Yeah. Joe, I haven't been nearly cutting enough about this team. Have you got anything to say before we move on to Seb's little section?
That original point I made about it's okay to be wrong. This is basically, it's game week 1. And I don't think I've seen a season for quite some time where so many teams are in flux, where Chelsea teams in flux, when Man City's in flux because they've got Haaland, they've got to adjust to a new way of playing to get Haaland to score, who we saw in the Community Shield was making those runs. I think he had an XGI or XG of 1.5, I think it was.
Yeah, just XG,
and Liverpool also in flux as well with Nunes, Darwin up front as well. So that's a change. Plus, you've got Arsenal. Plus, you've got Manchester United, who could be the Arsenal of this season, as in massive bargains. But they might not be. They might still be absolutely rubbish. So you never know. Then you've got all these middle teams, these sort of mid-table teams, the Wolves, the Brighton. You don't know how well they're going to do. Are they going to be edging towards the bottom of the table, to the top of the table? There's a lot of unknowns here. So it's impossible to look at this team and say, oh, that's wrong. And anyone who says anyone else's team, that's wrong.
That's not true.
I don't think they can categorically say that. I personally would not put Walker and Doherty in my team, and they've never been near my team. But that doesn't mean they're wrong. They could both be absolutely brilliant assets, short term and long term. I don't know, and I might soon consider them, but I'm certainly not going to slag off this team.
You've annoyed Seb so much, his camera's actually stopped working, and he just froze for a little bit there. So, Seb, just talk to us for a little bit to make us sure that you're back. No, don't know what's going on with Seb.
No, that's fine. It's Leeds internet, I believe.
Yeah, that's what it is. See, yeah. Well, we were going to be going on to Seb's underperformers and overperformers, but I will let he seems to have gone for a second. So what we'll do, we'll go on to Joe. We're going to go on to your team reveal straight away. How's that sound?
Okay. Oh, well, hang on. Seb's
hang on.
Now,
is Seb back? You're muted, my friend.
I think he's muted himself, which is...
How's that?
There you go. Right, so Seb, we're going to go on to your underperformers and overperformers.
Oh, cool.
All right. So I'm going to bring up the underperformers first then. So underperformers. So these are the top 5 underperformers from last season. We've got McNeil at the top, who obviously is now at Everton. We got Jensen from Brentford. We've got Grealish from Man City, which I'm sure you're going to talk to us about a little bit as well. We've got Chris Wood from Newcastle and Cancelo from Manchester City. So talk us through kind of these players and what it means for them to be underperforming as well.
Sure. So if I drop out again, please take over from me here because you know this well enough, I'm sure. But I guess firstly, this is expected data again, which isn't everyone's cup of tea, but I like it as just take it as is. It tells you what, it doesn't tell you why. As long as you know that, you're good. Expected goals is obviously effectively a measure of a chance. So it is, on average, you take 1,000, 10,000 shots from 1,000 players, whatever it is. How many times did it turn into a goal? Cool. That's the XG of that chance based on, the goalkeeper's position, the position of the shot, the height of the ball, blah, blah, blah. The fact that someone like Kane overperforms his XG isn't XG not working. It's XG working because Kane is an above average finisher. So he performs better than XG, which is a measure of the average conversion of that chance. XA can differ depending on your model. So Opta XA, I think, tries to value the quality of a pass and how it might turn into a goal, whereas the StatsBomb one is basically just XG assisted. So it gives the value of the XG to the assister. So with that small and quick definition out of the way, that's what this is describing. And then under and overperformers, so underperformers here are the players who delivered lower than they were expected based on the numbers they put up. So for example, I think we have McNeil at the top there, where he was expected to be involved in 8.23 goals. 2.94 of those were goals himself, whereas 5.29 were expected to be assists. And he only got 1 assist, according to the numbers we've got here. So he massively underperformed. Fair enough, Burnley got relegated, so maybe that's why. He's now obviously back in the league. So one to keep an eye on, maybe, although his numbers in isolation aren't great, even though he underperformed. The interesting two for me, and obviously this table is always less interesting because it tends to be poorer players. The interesting two for me are Grealish and Cancelo. We all love Cancelo. We know he put up good numbers. We know he even got good points. What this is saying is that he actually could have got even more points. Now, if he repeats his performances from last year, you may therefore expect him to get more goals and more assists, which of course is attractive. And then there's Grealish, who, if I recall, had the second best XA per 90, which is the important part, in the league last year. Of course, the per 90 is important. This is where our expected minutes come in and the fact that whether we think he's going to start or not. If City had signed Cucurella and had therefore a left footer on the left and had that wide option, I think Grealish really does become an option on the left wing. He cuts inside, he comes close to Haaland, and they almost play those sort of inside forwards. Without Cucurella, without the left footer out there, Cancelo on the left. Yeah, we saw Cancelo and Grealish start in the Community Shield, but that's because Grealish has had a good season. I think longer term, that might now be Foden's spot because Pep will want his left footer out there, which might mean Grealish is at risk. And that's why he's not in my team now. Whereas earlier in the summer, I was pretty bullish on him because it's 7 million for the second best XA performer in the league and Haaland now up front. I thought that was a really nice edge, but I'm shying away from it now. So we'll have to see how that develops. But I think it's one to keep an eye on.
What's your take on Grealish, Joe? Because I think McNeil, Jensen, Wood, I don't think anybody's going to be starting with them anyway. Most people have Cancelo. I think
Chris Wood, I'll just pull you up there. I certainly will be having Chris Wood in my team at some point this season.
We all know you've got Wood, Joe. But Grealish is obviously the interesting one here because, like Seb's just alluded to there, some of the stats were quite good last year, but he only started 22 times, only scored 3 goals, and he was massively underperforming. Before the Community Shield, I quite like the look of him, but as, again, Seb's just alluded to, Foden with his left foot looks way better in terms of giving that team width, whereas Grealish was cutting inside, it looks so narrow. So what's your take on Grealish, or if you wanted to start Grealish to start the season?
Yeah, as I said before, Man City are one of many teams in flux at the moment. You can see Haaland's making the runs. You can see he's going to be an absolute menace to opposition defences. And that Bournemouth game in Gameweek 2 looks tasty. But the team has to provide for him, and they're trying to. And Pep said they want to get crosses into him, but they're not getting them early and accurately enough to him. And Foden, however, was looking like he could be the man to do that. Grealish perhaps wasn't. It's just one game, though, the Community Shield. I think they'll get there in the end, and Grealish will be an option. But I think it's same as it ever was in that regard. Grealish, Mahrez, Foden, Bernardo Silva, all of these types of players will all be great assets week and then not and then maybe another week, and they won't have that offer that consistency. And you, unfortunately, with Man City, you got to pay top dollar. You got to pay for Haaland, who's the guy they're all aiming for, and also De Bruyne has been tearing it up in pre-season, and he's quite good, And so, but you got to pay for him. So I think out of all of those options, Grealish is a wait and see. Cancelo, we hope he's going to actually deliver more often, as the underperforming stats said. But I think it's Foden would be the one I would go for at the moment. He was favoured, and I think he will gradually be the one who will provide and score and do all the things that you would expect a top team to do in attack. So, he'd be the one. But yeah, every season I hope it's Mahrez, but never is. Hasn't been since Leicester, unfortunately, as an FPL asset.
Unfortunately, Mahrez, they could have one fit outfield player and he still wouldn't be nailed. It's just how it is with Mahrez. I'll
tell you what, Alvarez looks good. And I think he's going to get some points. And Pep wasn't really good with the 5 subs. When 5 subs did come in amid COVID, he didn't do that. And some matches he didn't sub anyone off. And some of his fans were screaming, you can make 5. You can make 5 of these. It was like none. So I'm not sure he's going to change that around. He does like to sort of stick to the team that he's put out. But Alvarez, I'd like him to be an option. He's really good.
I'd love to plug, is it Luke, FF Scout Luke on Twitter here, who is an excellent, yes indeed, an excellent Man City predictor of lineups. And I think his big thing is that, unlike the popular opinion on, Pep Roulette, Pep actually generally goes with who is playing well. Of course, there are tactical solutions for certain matches, and we see that at the back. Maybe the Walker one with their first few matches, if they want, some set piece defense, it won't be Walker. But generally, especially going forwards, Pep does seem to pick players based on how well they're performing in the moment.
Yeah, it's been Foden most eye test wise, stats wise, whatever. Foden is the one. I haven't had good luck having him in my team. He's been in and out of my team last couple of years, and I always just miss his points, which is annoying. I mean, Man City have got so many good players that who is going to bang each week? Don't know.
I think that's the defense, man. I think that's why that's attractive, right? Because I mean, I didn't have it in my team, but a lot of people. Oh, well, yeah, fair. But I mean, Edison, and Cancelo and Haaland could see you do very well.
I don't know. But it's not the upside. There's no upside. Edison's never going to get you bonus points.
I've seen many teams with Edison and Cancelo, and I think if you're going to go that route, you might as well go Walker and Cancelo and save yourself 0.5.
Ake, yeah.
Or Ake,
yeah. But then I just don't see it. At least for me, I would much rather own somebody that, like Trippier, like Gabriel, someone like that, who at least, or Zinchenko, someone that is at least going to be getting forward or on the end of crosses or something like that. Whereas I just don't see it with Walker. Ake maybe a little bit, but Diaz. I mean, it's great, but
I think when everyone's fit, Ake isn't. I mean, it's Laporte, isn't it? Their first choice in inverted commas back 4 is Walker, Diaz, Laporte, Cancelo. Again, depending on opposition, and they haven't made signings. I think the reason they wanted Cucurella is for that left footer on the left, and so that Cancelo could play right back, Walker could play when required. Without that, I think we know Ake probably isn't in the first choice team unless he really forces his way in there.
I think he may have done. I think he may have forced his way. We've seen it before. You can have a really good defender, Man City, on the bench because another one is just showing. I think John Stones did it. Who did John Stones keep out? I think it was
Walker, wasn't it? He played it right. He played it right back over.
It was Laporte. He was
Laporte. He kept Laporte.
Oh, okay.
So
I think Stones is ahead of Ake, although he wasn't quite fit for Community Shield, was he?
He wasn't in pre-season.
Yeah,
it was him and Foden. I can't remember who else. Something to do with COVID vaccination rules in America.
Yes,
they can do pre-season.
Yeah. No, it's so back to obviously what we said. Grealish, I've lost confidence in being able to pick Grealish. I think, although for 7 million, that's a fantastic price. If Foden or Mahrez or whatever gets injured, and it looks like they're not going to play. But I think the confidence just isn't there with him yet, unfortunately.
If you can find them, those are the edges for me. The players that other people are undervaluing their minutes and maybe haven't quite seen, or undervaluing their points potential. Bit cheap, someone like Grealish. The thing is timing, right? You don't need to rush into it. It's a long season. Wait for a bit of confirmation, maybe.
Yeah. And then Overperformers, which is one of my favourite ones, because some of the names on here are fascinating. So top 5 overperformers from last year. So these are the people that did a lot better with the XGI that they managed to accumulate. So KDB is top of that list. He had an XGI of 13.71, but he got 15 goals and 25 starts, which is just, remarkable stats, really. Son is second, which we spoke about an awful lot last year. Got 23 goals and almost 22 XGI, which isn't massively overperforming, but there you go. Maddison is third, Harvey Barnes is fourth, and then Robertson is fifth. So, Seb, I think these names on here are much more interesting in terms of, are these players that are now overpriced and we're not actually expecting them to repeat what they did last year?
Yeah, I think so. This is the flip side of the other one, and I think this is where the good players overperform, bad players underperform. Maybe over and under is the wrong way of phrasing it. A bit like expected goals isn't maybe quite what it means. This is averages again. So someone like De Bruyne, maybe we would expect him to score more goals and get more assists than expected because he plays in a brilliant team and he's a brilliant player himself. Interestingly, De Bruyne was massively under last year. So quite nice that it's flipped and he's come out on top, especially on the goal side, if I recall. I think he's doubled his XG or something like that. So quite nice that happened. We know, Son is probably one of, if not the best finisher in the world, maybe just behind Messi. He's done it for long enough for us to be confident that it is not just a variance thing, it's a him thing. Although it is important to note that finishing is probably the most random skill in football. And there's a lot of discussion in analytics communities as to whether it's actually a skill that's very measurable, because people go through hot streaks, for want of a better word. People go through poor streaks, and you see, for example, De Bruyne last season massively under, this season massively over. So what is he, good or bad? Without recency bias, you'd probably say he's average if he took those 2 seasons. Son, however, probably overperformed for long enough. I think the interesting ones are like your Maddisons and Barnes, who are maybe a step down in terms of quality of player. And that's where you go, okay, did they just have a really hot season? Or is there something there that I can tap into? Like, do we expect Barnes, who I don't know if anyone thinks is a particularly fabulous finisher or provider of final balls, whatever it is. Do you think he's going to overperform again?
No.
He's in somebody's draft.
No.
So this, that doesn't mean he's going to regress to a mean or anything. Seasons are independent events. All this means is if he puts up, what have we got here? His XGI is 9.64. So we would expect him to get 9.64 goals / assists, whatever that is. He's overperformed by 6.36 odd. So, a good 66% overperformance there. Do you think he can do that again? I would say probably not, but it doesn't mean he can't.
Yeah. See, I honestly, out of all the tables we've got today and things, I find this one the most fascinating because De Bruyne and Son start to creep into people's teams. But of course, we've got Salah, we've got Kane, we've got Haaland. We can't afford that third one. But I'm wondering whether that is the position or that's the thing that we are not looking at enough. So, Joe, talk to me about De Bruyne and Son, because they're both 12 million. Son had arguably the best season he has ever had in football last season. Obviously, that was a big factor with Conte coming in, with Kulusevski coming in as well, because he kind of took Son's role, so Son could obviously get those attacking returns. And De Bruyne, 4 goals against Wolves. We all remember when we weren't owning him last year. But is a threemium actually an option this year with someone like De Bruyne and Son?
I just said no. All summer, I and almost any other engaged FPL manager has tried to make a threemium work, and some say they have, and some say they haven't. Every single draft I put in with a threemium, so a De Bruyne or a Son and a Haaland or a Kane and a Salah, has looked awful. The rest of the team suffers enormously. You can't have all of those wonderful value defenders. You have to make compromises like going without Alexander-Arnold, going without Jesus, all these types of things. And it's just not worth it. So I've done that before, 6 or 7 years ago. I remember it was whenever Hazard was playing and Sanchez was at Arsenal. And I can't remember who it was, but there was 3 players who were all around the 11, 12 million mark.
Aguero was pretty hot.
Aguero, possibly. I invested in all of those. The rest of the team, I had loads of these 4.5s and 5 million, and my rank suffered as a result of that. Because so I favour, because as I keep saying, we don't know. There's so many unknowns. I favour at the moment sort of hedging my bets a bit and thinking, well, I might go for a threemium. but I'm not going to start with it because it's too inflexible at the moment. But Son is enormously accurate, and De Bruyne is enormously involved. That's what you need to know about them, and they are definitely worth their money. Maddison, Barnes, and to some extent Vardy as well. The thing about Leicester, they can be enormously attacking. Barnes shoots all the time. It's almost like there's a voice in his head saying, shoot, shoot, shoot. And some of them will go in and most of them won't. And everyone will remember the ones that don't go in because it looks stupid. But sometimes they do go in. And you will occasionally get these nice runs with Barnes and of course, Maddison as well, especially when they've got poor opposition. But Vardy defies his age every year. And we will think, is this the year when he just dips? And perhaps it won't be. Perhaps it'll just be injury every now and again. So while he's fit and raring to go, he's like Son, enormously accurate. I think he's a really good option. And he was one of my top 3 picks for the captaincy this week. If you did not want to go down the Salah and Spurs route, I think Vardy is a great differential against Brentford, whose defence hasn't looked great in pre-season.
Worth noting, Vardy we've only got the top 5 here, but he comes 10th on this list of overperformers. Just behind Kulusevski, Mount, Salah and James. So again, quality players who deliver us points usually. Vardy
has perennially, and I'm not even going to do those cliches about stats busting and all that, but basically he's perennially on this list. He always is because he takes his chances so well. And so the stats just go, how can he score so much? I think
the interesting one, over his career, he's something like bang on his XG and goals. It's just in the latter part that he's exceeded.
It all evens out in
which,
the end.
You can try and find a reason for that if you want, or it can be random, or we don't know.
So, Seb, just going back to De Bruyne and Son, because they're the two on this list that I'm really interested in. Robertson we'll get to in a minute, but De Bruyne and Son are the ones for me. I'm slightly annoyed they're not 11.5, because I feel like if De Bruyne and Son were 11.5, then you've got the choice of whether you go Kane or Son, or do you go Haaland or De Bruyne. I think that would be a really interesting decision a lot of people would have to make. Obviously, it would be different because you then have to have 2 4.5 strikers, which isn't amazing, but should people be looking a little bit at don't have Haaland, have De Bruyne, and don't have Kane, have Son? Because Son far outperformed Kane last year for the majority of the second half of the season. And De Bruyne, obviously, we've been told in pre-season he's looked absolutely incredible. Haaland's got to settle in yet. Who are they going to rely on? Probably that world-class midfielder they've got in midfield there, isn't it? So is there a case for going Son instead of Kane or De Bruyne instead of Haaland?
Well, hey, a player we haven't mentioned on this list is Kane. He actually did underperform a little last season. He was down. He's been great in pre-season, if pre-season is your thing, although I'd argue he was great last year as well. We've learned nothing new there. I think Kane may well up his returns this year, whereas Son is more likely for his to go down. That doesn't mean they'll be bad by any means, but he's just had the best career of his season of his career. Do you think he's going to top that, or do you think he's maybe going to go slightly under, even if it's still really good? So I think that's why, at least just versus Son and Kane is attractive enough. Like you say, 11.5 versus 12 is good. Also, it's the positions, as you also said there, up front, it's a Greenwood or someone, whereas in midfield, at least you can have an Andreas Pereira. And also there are other options for moving a squad around. Think about if you need a bench player, if you've got 2 4.5 forwards, you could be in trouble, whereas you've got an Andreas or even just a Winks if you get to transfer coming in. On De Bruyne, I'd be more tempted, although I'm a big De Bruyne fanboy. Again, maybe it's just a price and a squad structure thing. That easy swap from Kane to Haaland is nice early on. And then, on the freemium, I don't even think it's close to being a good idea, because the way you get value out of these players is captaincy. Salah aside, who probably is value even without the captain's armband, these massively expensive players only provide you good return on their investment if you get to give them the captaincy, say 50% of the time, or, maybe a bit more for Salah, whatever. If you start splitting that between 3 players, you actually get more out of your money by putting it in, say, an 8 and a 7 or whatever, and giving the captaincy to between 2 players.
Yeah. And Joe, just before we get on to your god-awful team in a minute, Robertson, so many people have been talking about Robertson or Diaz. So many people. And I know a lot of people have been saying it's not a 1 mil difference, it's a 0.5 difference because of the...
It's a structure difference as well. One's a defender, one's a midfielder.
But talk to me about Robertson or Diaz, because I've thought about this. I've thought about it an awful lot, is that I trust Robertson. I don't know whether to trust Diaz yet.
Well,
so what's your thoughts on it?
Well, I mean, anyone who saw the Community Shield, that's what Robertson is about. He's about getting assists. He even had a shot. He can score. He'd get bonus. Obviously, there's a lot of clean sheets with Liverpool. 7 million. I mean, I think him and Alexander-Arnold are the most underpriced in the game, and great. I think the game has struggled to catch up price-wise with the amazing points potential of these attacking defenders. And that's not me immediately saying definitely go 5 at the back. But I do think Robertson and Alexander-Arnold are assured for starts. They might miss the odd one, and then they were assured of returns and bonus as well. I've often, back when Alexander-Arnold wasn't an absolute must-have, when he was just quite good, I would often have Robertson over him and didn't notice the difference. They both scored really well. So I really like Robertson, and as we shall see, he's in my team, and he is pretty cemented in my team. But the discussion over Diaz is, are there better alternatives to Robertson? Well, no, but there are good players. They're the Chelsea wing backs. There are other cheaper wing backs as well. There's Villa players you could go with. There's really cheap Leicester assets there, and also Man City. So there's lots of. I know with Andy's team, we're going to talk about 8 million midfielders, so I won't talk too much about that. But there are a number of also a lot of unknowns with all of those. And I think with Diaz, he's one of those. I think he'll play. I think he'll start. I think he'll be involved. But will he get more FPL points than Robertson? That I'm not sure about.
I think Joe's made some great points there. If I could just add as well, I think with Jota being out at the beginning of the season, at least for the first couple of weeks or whatever.
He might not be now.
No.
Oh, really?
No,
okay, well, if he
magic.
is, if he is, those expected minutes for Diaz go up, and I think therefore he's maybe ahead of Robertson. Longer term, I'd rather have Robertson. If, as you're saying, Jota is back, maybe I'm switching my team up. But I think all of this for me, all of our conversation tonight really comes down to the idea that most people are wildcarding between game week 6 and 9.
Yeah.
So someone like, Walker, someone like Diaz, whatever, if they get the first 3 game weeks, that's only 50% of the time I need them for. I don't need someone till Christmas, unlike previous seasons.
Yeah. I keep coming back to Diaz and Robertson, or I did before anyway. I've kind of cemented myself with Robertson now, and I just kept coming back to things that weren't talking about their points. I was talking about the fact I know Robertson's going to play every time. I know that Robertson's price is pretty much going to be the same the whole time, whereas Diaz could fluctuate quite a bit. Like, he could go up quite a bit. If he starts really, really well, people are going to be getting him in, and he could be 8.2, 8.3 million in a couple of weeks. Whereas Robertson, even if he starts really well, he's not going to go up that much. So I kept going back to things that weren't points, which probably wasn't the right way to do it. But I do think it's fascinating to talk about this, because we all want 4 Liverpool spots, basically, don't we? Right, Joe.
And read it out. Read it out in the notes.
No, I'm not going to read it out in the notes. Oh, I will. Look, right, here we go. So Joe has written, same format as above, but mention I'm brilliant and the bestest at FPL. Oh, right, here we go. So that's not going to fuel the fire at all for what we say about your team, Joe. So I put Joe's team up on the screen now. So this is correct now. The bench should be correct. So he has got Ramsdale in goal, Cancelo, Perisic, Alexander-Arnold and Robertson. Love that. Barnes, that's Harvey, not Ashley, obviously, because he's in the Championship now. Salah is captain, Martinelli, Bailey, Kane and Jesus up top, with Ward, Patterson, Andreas, Pereira and Archer. And he does have 0.5 million in the bank.
Yes.
And I bet I know why you've got 0.5 million in the bank, Joe.
Well, do you know what? I've said it a couple of times on Twitter, but 0.5 in the bank is your 16th man, because you don't know what's going to happen in game week 1. You're going to make a move in game week 2. Possibly you might not make a move in game week 2, but whatever you do, you're going to be looking at those price changes. You're going to look at Haaland going up if you want to get him in, and all these things. And you're going to have to either make that move early or not bother, or take a hit. And we're going to see hits as well. We see it every year, especially more newer managers to FPL who are a bit more keen to use their hits. Whereas that 0.5 in the bank, I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but that's the flexibility of it. I can do something with it. And I've tried a number of drafts, and I can still keep getting that 0.5 in the bank. And so hopefully I will go into game week 1 with that there, ready to perhaps use it or not, just to keep it in the bank.
Do you know what? There's not a lot I think you could use that 0.5 for. I really think using it for those price changes later on is a really good idea. I tweeted not too long ago saying how if Kane scores and Haaland score in the first week and they both go up 0.1, you cannot move Kane to Haaland because your selling value will mean you're selling Kane for 11.5 and Haaland's 11.6.
And now, and FPL, I don't know if anyone else has noticed, it's a strategic game against millions of other managers. So you've got to think initially in game week 1, all of those millions and millions are all your rivals. As you get to game week 20 or so, suddenly you're looking at the top 100k, the top 10k, you're looking at what they're doing. And those that are, say, 7 millionth in the world, perhaps they're not your rivals. But you're looking at everyone now, and you've got to think what they're going to be doing. So people who start with Kane, who want to move to Haaland in game week 2, if they haven't got any money in the bank and there's some price changes, they're either not going to make that move, they're either going to make that move with a hit. So you're competing against those people. So Haaland suddenly becomes a differential against those managers there. And that's betting that Haaland absolutely hammers Bournemouth, which could happen, I think. Yeah. But you never know.
So
would it be fair to say if please,
I was just going to say, so Kane obviously you're starting with, and your plan is to move to Haaland second week, yeah?
Maybe.
If all things go as you want them to, I'm assuming that
maybe
would be your optimal.
because now another player that people forget about is Salah. What Salah, game week 2 captain? Why not just captain him loads? I mean, he's really good. He's really good. One of the things that why he wasn't so good.
Insight.
Yeah, this is what they pay top dollar for. One of the reasons he wasn't so good after AFCON, people thought it was say fatigue or so, but one of them was his contract wrangling, and I think there was an interview with Van Dijk saying that he didn't feel he was focused. I don't know how long his contract's for now, but it's all signed and sealed and delivered. And once again, looking at the Community Shield, which is something we can look at there, he wasn't the main man. He was out wide for some of the match, but he still went away with what would have been a 26-point return for your FPL captain.
Why has Seb got his hand up?
Please, sir.
Objection. Salah was better after AFCON than he was beforehand. He just didn't convert chances. All of his numbers were better after AFCON than before, apart from converting XG into G and actually XA into A, but that's not even his fault. So you absolutely could make an argument that for reasons, his finishing was worse. We discussed a bit earlier, whether finishing is a real skill, blah, blah, blah.
And this contract
but I think could be Salah, so I absolutely think that could be a thing, but I don't know how you define that. I don't even know how you prove that is real. So he was unhappy about his contract or whatever. So he was playing better in every aspect of his game but his finishing. Why would the contract specifically affect his finishing? Well, you could argue that finishing is massively psychological. Fair enough.
Also, I mean,
I just don't know if
that's his job. So he was excellent in everything except his actual job.
Literally his job.
Well, no,
literally his job.
So again, that's the whole thing.
It was the only thing he wasn't good at was his job.
Well, that's the whole thing with analysing strikers. Arguably a more impressive skill is getting the chance, not converting the chance. We look at people by their XG. That is the quality of chance you receive. That was better.
It's in his new contract. It's in his new contract. He doesn't have to score goals. He has to get
just got XG.
40 XG. Yeah.
Salah just moving into stain those golden boots off his shelf and replacing them with an XGI score.
That is how Brentford operate. They judge their manager on expected numbers, not real things. Real things. Oh no, I've done it. I've
so
sabotaged myself.
Now, with my team, going back to that, remember that.
Yeah.
So there's a number of players that I haven't really changed and will stay there. And Cancelo, Alexander-Arnold, Robertson are amongst them. Salah, obviously, and Jesus. And Jesus has been there not just because of his pre-season form. Just as soon as I saw his price, 8 million, I thought, hello. I think he's been undervalued by about 1.5 million. I'll put him in.
Over 70% owned now.
And over 70% owned. That's what everyone's thinking. And they're quite right to think that as well. Kane could be Haaland. Martinelli, I'm fairly set with Martinelli. Bailey, I like the fact that he's playing Bournemouth first. The defences to target, I think, and I could be wrong, as we keep saying, could be wrong. Bournemouth and Fulham, because they're in all sorts with injuries and in the transfer market. And I think Bournemouth will be going into their first few matches with basically a Fleetwood Town defender they signed last January, and it just goes on like that. So now Harvey Barnes is the one that will raise eyebrows. He's in there for two reasons. One is I'm not sure what to do with that spot at the moment. I don't know whether I want an 8 million in there. I don't know whether I want a Foden or a Mason Mount or even Saka in. I don't know. But I also don't know whether I might go even cheaper with Neto in and go for a Neto and Bailey double up, and bench one occasionally, play them both occasionally. I think they've both got great early fixtures and they both show lots of promise. So Barnes is in there because I like Leicester's opening fixture. I definitely like their third game week 3 fixture. And he's a sort of I can move to anyone. I can possibly go up after a little while. I could possibly go down in price in that role. So I'm not sure. I don't think Harvey Barnes is going to remain in my game week 1 squad, but as a bus team, I'm happy to go into game week 1 with Harvey.
How much is Barnes? Sorry,
7.
It's
only 7
okay. So with your 0.5, would you? I know you said you might change, but I guess you'd have to change more than this. Do you feel you don't want or can't get access to those 8 million midfielders?
No, I can because now in defense, now Perisic is someone I'm 50-50 on. Is he great? Yes. Is he Conte's favourite? Yes. Is he fit enough to start the first 2 games? I don't know. So I'm going to be a keen ear on the press conferences there for him. And so that I would be looking to downgrade him to possibly a 4.5. And Darlow is someone who was in my team. And I do think there's exceptional value there. Also Brighton as well. But I do have some more money in a draft I'm toying with at the moment, which is very
all under his bed, isn't it? All under his couch.
A draft
when you never finish outside
in a
the top
secret
100K,
drawer I can get out.
1 million budget.
Now on my bench is Ward, and Ward is there because Schmeichel was being sold to Nice, which is a very nice move for him. But the pairing of Leicester and Brighton defence, and it was something I really wanted to go to this season with, but didn't, was a 4.5 goalkeeper rotation, which I used to do years ago and I miss. And I think that's a really good part of the game. So if I scroll down the notes, hopefully I put in some fixtures here, and in my notes I can reveal there. So obviously with Brighton and Leicester, there is a really good. It's so good for the first few pictures until you wildcard. It's just absolutely brilliant. So Leicester, you can start with Ward against Brentford, and then you can put Brighton against Newcastle. Brighton have a very good record against Newcastle, and then you can move Leicester again at home to Southampton, and then you can move up to Brighton again at home to Leeds. Very good record against Leeds. No offense, Seb. And then you got Brighton against Fulham. So while Leicester have Manchester United, and I think even in the next batch of fixtures, so if you go for game week 6, well, they play each other there, Leicester Brighton, so take your pick, and then Leicester have Aston Villa, Brighton against Bournemouth. I mean, it goes on. It's a really good combination. I really like it, and I think I might go for that rather than Ramsdale.
I like the idea of you freeing up that money and putting it into Barnes personally. But Barnes for me sticks out because, not because he's wearing blue, but he sticks out for me because of his price point. And I know people hate talking about price points, but he's in that weird price point where you're not really going to want to move him to many people.
No, and that's why he's there, because game week 1 hasn't started yet. So I'm looking at a sort of a structure where I can easily, have a little tinker with the team and just move a player here and move a player there. And if I had 2 4.5 midfielders in there and I didn't have Barnes who was 7, I would have to do a bit of restructuring. This way, I can just borrow a bit from here, a million here, and make Barnes into a Mason Mount, for example, or Maddison if he's looking good.
I think Barnes he's never been my cup of tea in terms of an FPL asset either. Like, you get Maddison if you want some Leicester attacking mid option. Like, his number, we saw he was in the Overperformers. His numbers have never been that great.
No.
and they're basically always betted by Maddison.
But he's always been a superb differential, because every now and again he just absolutely bangs.
I mean, look, if he was a bit cheaper, was he 6.5 last year? Maybe.
Yeah,
I think that's a different conversation. But like Andy said, at that 7, it's like, am I just going up to the 8s maybe there?
Yeah, and people will look at that and go, "Oh no, Harvey Barnes is in there." But hopefully, Andy, I put a photo in. I don't know whether you've got this photo to put up.
I don't. When you mentioned it, I realised I hadn't. I do apologise. I'm sorry.
No, do you know what? I promised that it was going to go in as well. But,
you can mention it. Give him a plug now.
I will mention it, and I will put a photo up on my Twitter so people can see it. But basically, Craigie Backer and FPL Doodles have done this amazing book, which I think has taken FPL fans by storm this summer, because it's a real back to basics. Something we spoke about in a Scoutcast, Andy, you wanted to make the game more simple, and they basically got a colouring in book of all your drafts and your game week 1 sides, and you can set up for your game week 2 sides, and you can fill in your players, you can put it in pencil, rub them out, and then you can colour in their little shirts as well. So this is why I wanted to put the picture up. In that picture there, I only have Cancelo, Alexander-Arnold, Robertson, Salah, Jesus, and currently Kane. And the rest are just all blank with a series of names, including Mount. Is in there. Martinelli, he may not remain, but he might do. Obviously Neto as well. And there's a whole bunch of players that are in there. Perisic, and even goalkeepers up in the air. So I wanted to put that in, not just to highlight the work that Craigie's done on that, but also to highlight that there's so much up in the air at the moment that we don't know, and to be ironed out in press conferences later. But I think cheap midfielders is something I'm looking at, of whether ignoring that 8 million price tag and going for a couple who are 2 or 3 under 7 million. So I don't know if you've got this table to put up on the screen.
I was just going to say, before I bring it up though, your colouring has improved tenfold, hasn't it? Like you are colouring in the lines. Well, you're thinking about your kit colours as well, aren't you? It is remarkable.
If only the viewers could see it. That I was particularly pleased with the Harry Kane one. I've accidentally given him a bra. But anyway,
but you're trying hard. That's the main thing. And me and Seb have been really impressed when you send us a picture of your recent colouring. Honestly, it's like proud parents.
I'm very good.
Right, so I brought up the table that you were just talking about, and this is the best midfielders for under 7 million. So we're going to see some players in here that are in a lot of teams because of their fixtures, because of their price. But as we've just spoken about with Joe there, he's got Harvey Barnes. Does he go up to 8, or does he downgrade him to someone here as well? So we've got Neto at the top, then it's Martinelli, then Zaha. Then we've got Grealish, who we've already spoken about a little bit tonight anyway. Then Elise, then Barnes, Trossard, Hudson-Odoi, who could be playing right wing back at times this year, Smith Rowe, Ericsson, and Bailey. So, Joe, talk us through this list. Talk us through who you're liking, because obviously you've already got this dilemma in terms of what you do with Harvey Barnes.
Yeah, well, this is sorted by minutes per expected goal involvement. And this is showing that Neto, in the very few starts he had, he only started 5 times, but he was expected to get some kind of return every couple of matches, really, every match and a bit. Martinelli, very similar. And then you've got Zaha as well, 14 goals and a couple of assists last season. Had a great pre-season. He's being overlooked because of Crystal Palace's bad fixtures. And this may be because I'm a Brighton fan, but every time I see Zaha score, even if he's not playing against Brighton, he's going to score against Brighton somehow. And he's a really, really frustrating, annoying player if you are a fan of the team he's up against. So he is a great option still, I think. Grealish is in there. And then Luis you mentioned. And Barnes is a bit lower down. And so he's not as it's a very small sample with Neto. So he's not as good an option statistically as Neto, but such a small sample with Neto. That's made me think about perhaps dipping down and going for Neto and Bailey. And Bailey does feature in the list as well. I put him in. He was quite far down, but I put him down. Once again, a very small sample size, just 7 starts and played by injury. But he's had a great pre-season. I think I'm definitely going to start with him. I think I'm definitely. He's 90% locked in my team. But there are other options. Ericsson at Manchester United now. If he gets a run, he's great. Trossard, overlooked. Right, as a Brighton fan, I believe he's playing a left wing back at the moment
Oh.
in Potterball, but that's where he excelled and where he was getting all those lovely differential points towards the end of last season. So we may turn our noses up at left wing back Trossard, but that's where he's getting returns, and that could be where he's getting returns. Brighton have good early fixtures, so I do like him. So there's a lot of choice there. Also in the mix, doesn't make this list because he's got a bit of a new role this season. It's Dewsbury Hall at Leicester. He's been scoring and assisting in pre-season. Plus, Rodgers has instructed him to assist more. He wants him more involved in the goals. Will he do it? I don't know. I just want to put that photo up with me in the top hat and pretend he's a stately home again. So that's why I'm.
I like that he's instructed into assist more. It's like that old. When like Salah comes out and is like, "Oh, I'm targeting 30 goals," and everyone's like, "Yes, he's going to score goals." It's like
Dewsbury Hall hasn't been. He's not a winger. He's a central midfielder.
He was never told to assist before. To be fair,
now he's being told to do that. So
obviously it comes with the tactical thing as well. You'd hope.
Yeah, you would hope, but nevertheless, he's only 5 million, so he's a get out for Bailey and Neto.
I think he's a nice Bailey alternative. Yeah,
I could if I was to go for 3 cheap but okay midfielders, so Bailey, Neto, and Dewsbury Hall, I don't think is that weird, and just rotate them.
Or too much.
Just rotate those 3 and just have Salah, and that means you can invest a bit more. So we haven't mentioned. Well, we're going to mention some more expensive midfielders in a bit, but there's a whole bunch of those, like Raheem Sterling, who could absolutely go off and be superb for people who pick them.
Could I chuck a Leeds player in here as well?
No.
No. Well, you
100% not.
But I'm not going to listen.
It's going to be Aronson, isn't it?
Yeah, at 5.5. I think you wait and see. But he will be. We had a few questions in the chat just about Leeds. So Dan James is suspended, and Sinisterra is injured for a couple of weeks. Who's our new signing on the left? He's the Rafinha replacement in terms of quality. Well, hopefully, but he plays on the left, not the right. We are looking at lining up in a 4-2-3-1, maybe 4-2-2-2-2-2 sometimes. Yeah. It'll be Bamford up front. Yeah, Gelhardt backing up, maybe playing a bit of number 10. Then Harrison and James probably competing for the right. Sinisterra left, bit of Harrison over there as well. Rodrigo has been playing right and coming inside, can play 10 as well. And Aronson can pretty much play across those 3. I would expect him to be nailed at 10. I think Rodrigo will drop out when players return. So in that sort of bracket for Leeds, Aronson would be the one. We've got decent fixtures. I don't have any Leeds players in my team. I do think there are better options elsewhere. But if we start to see good stuff, I would take a look at Aronson.
Yeah.
And thus ends my propaganda.
3 players I want to talk about on this list, because I think these 3 players are the players that most people are going to want to talk about. Joe, Neto first. Obviously, injured for most of last year. But when him and Podence kind of burst onto the scene, for me anyway, I thought Neto was the baller out of the 2 of them. I thought he looked really, really good, and obviously had a horrific injury, not very nice, and he was out for a very long time. He is in an awful lot of teams, but people are saying, and rightly so, it's Wolves, they don't score goals. Can you spend that 5.5 million elsewhere better than Neto? What's your take on him?
Well, I don't know. I think Wolves have really great early fixtures. Jimenez is out with an injury. So it will be Gibbs White, Podence and Neto up front, and they will get subbed off. They will get possibly subbed on. They will get in the goals. They might miss out on the goals. But I think there are points there to be had with those players. And I think currently I would favour Neto, mainly through pre-season. He's looked better than those. But my weekly mention of my Sky team, Gibbs White is very cheap in that game, and he's in my team at the moment there. So he's a great enabler. But also I think he could be good. If I saw a Podence or Gibbs White in any team, I wouldn't think that was wrong or odd. I think Wolves have great early fixtures. If I scroll down my notes and have a look at those, remind myself of those fixtures again, because I think they're pretty much top or just nearly top for the fixtures. Yeah, they've got Leeds and then Fulham, Tottenham. That's a bit tough, and then they've got Newcastle, Bournemouth, and then from game week 6 onwards, they got Southampton, and then it absolutely drops off a cliff when they got Liverpool and Man City. So the first 6 fixtures are pretty good with just that Spurs game. So that's 5 out of 6 good fixtures. So I think starting with a Wolves player is pretty good. And Sarr, if I was going up to 5 5.0 for a goalkeeper, I favour Sarr. I still do. I would still favour Sarr, but I do like
really.
Yeah, because
Over like Ramsdale and Mendy.
Yeah, because Sarr's so, as I said in my video that I did with Az about the team draft, he's savelicious. He just gets loads of points and they get clean sheets.
See, I don't know. I guess this comes back to like the randomness of finishing, similar with saving those finishes. Wolves were bad. Like, when they went ages not conceding a goal and had a good defense. Yeah. Their defense was bad. This is your argument, I guess. Maybe Sarr was amazing.
I'm just looking at.
But are we trusting Sarr to be world class, or are we trusting Wolves to continue being bad and him to start conceding?
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, all I know is he's a great goalkeeper. He gets loads of save points, and they get clean sheets. So
I think at 4.5, I'm with you. I just think at 5.0.
I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see how the first few weeks go. But Arsenal and Chelsea,
Andy, Sarr was in your team for a lot of last season.
He was
indeed. Would you also describe him as savelicious?
Oh yeah, 100%. He was great for bonus and everything because the defense obviously let them have the shots. What happened was obviously the first half of the season that was brilliant. Second half of the season, variance caught up, and all of a sudden all those shots were going in, and he was awful, because their defense fell off a cliff. But
we're only looking for say 6 weeks before we maybe wildcard. So if
but you don't know which 6 weeks those are going to be. What if they're the second half of last season?
I will wager it's the 6 weeks where he's got better fixtures than the 6 weeks where he's got appalling fixtures.
That's fair comment. Yep.
That may have been solving FPL there, that phrase, but basically, if they got good fixtures, they're going to get more points.
Yeah. Right. Next one on the list is Martinelli. So Seb, a lot of people in the chat, by the way, are saying that Smith Rowe has been confirmed injured for the start of the season, which means Martinelli, for 6 million. Yeah. For me, I don't think people realise quite how much Martinelli was playing at the end of last year anyway. Yeah. I think in the last 24 games, he played 20. He started 21 and he played in the other 3. So he played pretty much all the time. Don't get me wrong, he got subbed off early quite often because he's a winger, he's a young winger, it's going to happen. But he was getting the returns. He got 6 goals, got 7 assists. For me, for 6 million for Arsenal with their fixtures to start with, especially with Smith Rowe's injury now as well, I think he's got to be a lock in most teams.
I think, like you say, with those fixtures, with their good numbers, their decent. When I say preseason performance, not just score lines. Well, it doesn't matter in preseason, but the structure has looked good. The lineup has been relatively consistent. If ESR's out, I think Martinelli is first choice on the left. The alternative is only the new signing or Nketiah. Nketiah was good in preseason, but the fact that he was good but kept not starting, I guess, tells you more information. Martinelli has that spot. Saka is obviously the best option in that midfield, but he's 2 million more. We don't know who has penalties. So Saka took most of them last year, but I think he won a lot of them. Martinelli took the one that he won. And there were some comments earlier today, and I forget who retweeted this, apologies, but someone kindly did, where I think Odegaard was interviewed in Norwegian.
We're losing you a bit. So.
But the claim there was that Arteta said, "Oh, sorry, can you let me, I will keep talking, let me know if you can hear me."
Yeah.
How about now? How is it now? I can see you and hear you.
Odegaard was about to reveal something in a Norwegian interview.
There was an Odegaard interview where he was asked about penalties, and apparently Arteta does it based on who's feeling it in the moment. So confidence, if you want to pretend that actually is a thing. So it sounds like maybe who wins it, or maybe who's feeling good. Yeah. Saka might be the default, but he may not keep all of them. So I do think Saka's the best option. I then think it's Martinelli and then Odegaard. Seeing as we're only looking at the first 6 to 9 weeks, Martinelli, 6 million, you get Jesus as well. I think it's a really nice option to have.
I think that's the only reason, and we're going to talk about Saka a little bit in a minute, but the only reason Saka's not in more teams is because Martinelli's there and because Jesus is so highly owned. Nobody wants that triple up, do they? So that's probably why Saka's not more owned. But I think most people that have gone with Saka then don't go with Martinelli. But then you've got Martinelli sat there 2 million cheaper, and it's just way too tempting, isn't it? Joe, last one on this list I want to talk about, and he's slowly crept into more and more teams, is Bailey. He's exactly the same as Neto. Barely played last year due to injury, but he's come back. He's looked fitter. He's looked better. He's had a really good preseason. He is only 5 million. The first 3 fixtures are beautiful, but after that, not so much. Would you be starting with him?
I'm going to start him, and until we get some of those answers to those questions. But I think you can replace him. If you've got by then a bit more money in the bank, you can move up. You can, if Dewsbury Hall's about the same, you can move to him. You can move down to a 4.5 midfielder who will emerge. Another one will emerge because we always think Pereira at Fulham is the one at the moment, but another one may emerge. And you can move there. I think there's options to move off him, or you can just bench him because he's that cheap. I remember starting a couple of seasons ago with Souček, and the way my team was structured, I just had to play Souček every game, even in the bad matches. But then he just kept scoring. And so loads of people were getting Souček points on the bench, and I was getting them in my team. So I was having quite a good start to that season. Because because in a way my team was worse than everyone else's, so I had to play Souček. I didn't have the luxury of benching him, and it paid off. And we've seen that before with the likes of, say, Decore at Watford, and Bailey's even more attack. He's not even central midfield. He's just he's an attacking player, and he's showing the form. I think he's great. I mean, I think we're speaking to Tom Freeman, a Villa fan, who Fantasy Football Scouts deputy editor, about. He's very keen on him as well. A lot of Villa fans are, and a lot of Villa fans who play FPL are very keen on him. 5 million. I mean, it's not, you're not breaking the bank. It's not a 12 million risk.
In some ways, I was talking to FPL Irons about this, Luke, saying that in some ways I actually wish he was a bit more expensive, because at 5 million he's such a tough position to move from, in terms of, like you just said, you'd be having to downgrade him to 4.5, wouldn't you? Because all the other 5 million mids are awful. You'd upgrade him maybe to Neto, but most people have Bailey and Neto, or you'd upgrade him to Martinelli. And in some ways, I wish he was a little bit more. But
I think he's a gift.
I think you've got to get him in.
Well, in fact, I was saying the opposite. You can move him down. I mean, I think 4.5 midfielders emerge, and also I think Dewsbury Hall is a great option. So I think there are options to move now for a very similar price, or even less. I remember in the past, I mean, getting that 4.5 midfielder who's the real surprise. Now, I remember when young Raheem Sterling was that man, Januzaj at Manchester United, and they get loads of points returns in a short space of time, and it's great to get on them as well. I remember when Stoke were FPL assets as well, and you likes of Joe Allen, all these players who were like just inexplicably scoring FPL points every week. It's great to get those players in. So don't, if Bailey suddenly gets benched and never plays, that you can run away from a Bailey.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
I think the thing with Bailey is that he probably needs to be your 12th player, not 11th. I know, like you're saying, you can transfer him out, but just because you're basically picking him based on past pedigree, which is legit, and some preseason hope that I think Gerrard said he'll probably start the first game, so great, which is Bournemouth. So score a hat-trick and we're all happy.
Yeah.
But realistically, Gerrard's preferred lineup probably doesn't include Bailey. With the 5 subs, maybe he absolutely gets 20 minutes at the end of every game, and that's brilliant. But the 5 subs brings me on to, that's an issue with our benches this year, and why I think we've got some great playing options in Nico Williams and Andreas Pereira. It's not that much of a question. But you only need one more expensive option on the bench, because what's going to happen is, I don't know, for my Walker option or for your Grealish option, whatever it is, your risk in the first 11, who last year wouldn't play at all, and therefore you get your bench player in, they're probably all coming on for the last 5 minutes now with 2 more subs.
But you can look at it the other way with those bench players. So, for example, I've got Archer as my back of my bench. But nevertheless, I might move him a bit forward because he is now in the Villa first team. Yeah. And Gerard's pretty much said, when we need him, not like, if. It's just when we need him, he can come on and do a job. So with the 5 subs, if it was 3 subs, I would think, but 5 subs, I think we're going to see Archer coming on 75th minute, 80th minute against tired legs. And I think he could be a good first sub in certain situations. If Villa have quite a good game, who could come on. But the 5 subs is going to be unusual because we're at risk of never needing our bench, because our players in our first 11, even if they don't start, there's much higher chance of them getting like 10 minutes or something.
Now, obviously, we're going to winter again. COVID isn't done. We will see how that goes. And unfortunately, there may be postponements again. Hopefully not. But that aside, I think the bench this year is about picking a 12-player squad, say, rather than 11, and deliberately rotating, or about covering for minutes risks. So, for example, my Doherty's or whatever have you, rather than in the past where it was covering for, say, unexpected injuries and things, or someone not starting. I think that's less of a thing this year. It's more about using it strategically than I don't know what the phrase is, sort of covering yourself with it.
Yeah. Lovely stuff. Everybody that's in the chat, if you're enjoying yourself, make sure you like and subscribe. We've got over 1,200 people watching live at the moment, which is absolutely awesome. So do make sure you like and subscribe because it helps us a lot. It makes us know that you're actually enjoying what you're watching, which hopefully you do. Even if it's only 33%, if you're only enjoying 33% of what you can see on the screen, that's absolutely fine. Joe's like, well, that must be me.
I was just thinking how you can subscribe to 33% and just thinking, will I be in any of those bits?
They'll work it out. They'll work it out. Right, moving on to what everybody's here for, my team. Here we go. So up on the screen now is my team as it looks at the moment. Now, I'll say as it looks at the moment, I've actually literally in the last 24 hours taken Kane out and put Haaland in, and I'll talk to you about that in a minute. But I've got Ramsdale in goal. I've got Trent, Cancelo, Robertson, James and Perisic at the back. So I'm playing a back five. I've got Salah, Martinelli and Bailey. And then I've got Kane and Jesus up top. But Kane is now Haaland. And in my head, I have decided I'm going with Haaland, not Kane. Then I've got Ward, Neto, Andreas Pereira and Archer on the bench with 0 in the bank. So I'm genuinely, I've been on 4-4-2 for pretty much the whole pre-season, and then I finally moved to this 5 at the back, and actually I really love it, and I don't think I'm going to be moving from this. I will be starting with 5 at the back now. I think that back 6 kind of picks itself really. I wanted Robertson over Diaz for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I've finally done it, and now I'm not moving off it. I'm quite happy with that. I think the upside for me with Robertson and the fact that I know he's going to be playing every game, I know exactly what I'm getting from him, I'm quite happy with. I've been toying with Diaz over James, but I think with Cucurella maybe signing, I feel like James is pretty much going to play on that right wing back role, hopefully. But even if he plays right centre back, those right and left centre backs still edge forward. Think Rudiger last year, he was still getting forward and taking those pot shots, and James is a much better finisher than Rudiger is. So I feel like James for me is, I'd rather start with him and hope that he does something brilliant than not start with him and watch him get 21 points again. Perisic, I just think he could be absolute gold this year when he plays. And then Salah, Martinelli, Bailey, Neto. I feel like Bailey, Neto and Andreas Pereira rotate really beautifully together. I'm not a massive fan of benching Neto, but I don't want to bench Bailey in that first week against Bournemouth, so it's going to be him playing over Neto at the moment. And then Haaland and Jesus. For me, I've been thinking about it so much, and I just don't want to make that move. I don't want to go from Kane to Haaland in game week 2. Ideally, I want to roll the transfer if I can. So I'm going to start with Haaland because I know I'm going to be captaining Haaland game week 2, and I know I'm going to be captaining Salah game week 1. So that's my 2 captains done, and hopefully no transfers straight away that I definitely have to do. So yeah, I'm fairly happy with this team. It is fairly template, but I haven't done it because it's template. I've done it because this is the team I have the most confidence in going forward. Yeah. So. Yeah, I'm quite happy with it. But Seb, you look like you want to talk, so I'm going to go to you first.
You're going to rip it apart.
It's about 3 transfers away from what I shared, so it's hard to rip it apart much. I probably wouldn't go Bailey, Neto, Martinelli, Andreas all there, but you've said rotation, so maybe I would then. If you've got a plan for playing them when you do. The only thing I guess that causes you trouble is a James and Perisic unexpected things, but do we really expect both of them to be issues? Probably not. I don't have too much bad to say. I think you've said yourself, right? Similar to the template, very similar to mine. So I guess my question more than your team is, we talked a lot this summer about pricing and things like that. We've all got relatively similar teams. Joe's trying to be a maverick with Barnes, although he may back out of that. I'll pressure him into a bad team. But realistically, we've all got teams that basically consist of the top 6.
Yeah.
Is that, and I mean this without agenda, is that what we want here? Do we all want to have these players? Do we think we want more variety? How do we think that plays out over the season?
The problem is that the top 6 sides have such nice fixtures to start with. So like if Man City and Liverpool and Arsenal didn't have nice fixtures to start with, I don't think we'd be going there. But Chelsea are the same. I want some kind of Chelsea coverage because their fixtures are so nice. Yes, they're in a bit of flux at the moment, and Tuchel's come out and said, he's not sure whether they're ready to start the season. But regardless, like that Everton game to start with, DCL's now out as well. And they've lost Richarlison. You can see that being, a Chelsea nice, easy away win to start the season. And James is just such a massive upside player. And I also think that, I want to try and get those big points from him at the start until he starts going on those 0, 1s and 2s runs. So, I do know what you mean. At one point, I had 3 Liverpool, 3 Arsenal, 3 Man City, 1 United and 1 Brentford.
Yeah, I've literally got that.
And I know what you mean. It kind of, in some ways, takes away the fun from it a little bit because you're not cheering on those other teams. But yeah, I like it. A few people are saying about, if you've got Bailey, I don't have a 8 million midfielder in there, which is something that I think a lot of people will talk about, but it won't take me that much to get to that person, if I'm honest. And I'm looking at it, I can't get Saka anyway. Saka's the 8 million player I would want, but I've got Martinelli. So it would be someone like Mount, or, if Kulusevski all of a sudden becomes an option. But yeah, I'm looking at it, and I was really high on 8 million players at the start. And I'm looking at it now and thinking, actually, I think there's other options. And I think if I really needed to get there, I probably could in game.
I think, I think looking at this team, it's something, a similar type team I might end up with as well, because the Harvey Barnes role, the 7 million, who could go up to a Mount or down to a Neto, and the down to a Neto, which is essentially what, if say you had a 7 million player then moved them down to Neto, that enables you to get a Perisic or a James in, whichever you don't have. And so for me, that would be 5 at the back. So it would upgrade a Patterson or Nico Williams to one of these Perisic or James type players, who are obviously a massive upgrade. So yeah, I mean, I like this, and it's something that I might end up with, because for me, the way I've structured my team, it's essentially Barnes and Patterson out for James and Neto, essentially. Yeah. So quick, easy move to do in a lunch break. And it's the Kane Haaland thing, because that's something I'm still thinking about. I do want Spurs against Southampton, but I am also aware when Game Week 2 rocks up and you've got that massive Norwegian striker absolutely hammering some Fleetwood Town defender that Bournemouth have got, then I'm going to want to captain him. But then maybe I'd want to captain Salah there. I think I would, and then Salah could be the one that gets more points, and then that'd be annoying.
Game Week 3 is the one. Game Week 3 is the one where you'd want Spurs, I think. Yeah. Because that's when they play Wolves at home, isn't it? And that's the one where I'm thinking, it'd be quite nice to have Kane then. But I just can't look beyond already having Haaland. And they're against West Ham. Like, he could get a goal against West Ham anyway. And all I keep thinking is, if that happens, then I obviously have Bournemouth next, and everybody's going to want to be on him for Bournemouth. So,
because no one's going to, despite Kane having a great record against Chelsea, no one's going to actively want to get Kane in for Chelsea over Haaland. So in terms of the way the market goes and other managers, but in terms of actual points, I think for me, the cost of getting Haaland in instead of Kane immediately is that Game Week 2, it means that definitely captaining Salah's off the table, and he could get more than Haaland.
Yeah.
And that would be really annoying, because you've actively not, and Kane could definitely get more than Haaland in Game Week 1. So you essentially points down, and then your Game Week 3 comes up and you want to, and suddenly Kane could be the captain to go for rather than Haaland. So it's a real tough one. What I will say to anyone watching and listening, start one. Please have one, because you can move around at some point, even if it means a hit.
I saw a lot of people moving off Haaland after the Community Shield, which shocked me actually, because he was playing the toughest team that he's going to.
He looked great, didn't he?
Yeah. He was playing the toughest team he's going to face this year, easily. He still racked up the XG, even though they didn't play to his strengths. It was so narrow, and obviously as soon as Foden came on, Silva came on, they were starting to actually go a little bit wide. It looked good for him. Pep will sort that out. Pep will work that out. And if he's already getting that XG now when the team isn't working for him, imagine what he's going to do when they start working for him. So if anything, I thought it was a little bit encouraging.
He's only just signed. City haven't played with a 9 of his type for about 2 years or whatever it is. I mean, Maguire isn't really his type either, but whatever. Has he played once in pre-season, I think, or something like that? Playing, as you said, the best defence he's going to play all year, because he can't play his own defence. And he was the width of a crossbar away from everyone saying, oh my goodness, we must have him. If you weren't on him already, if you already had Kane, then fine, brilliant. If that made you do Haaland to Kane, I think you need to go back and watch what he did in that match.
Yes. I will point out that Kane's been in my side for ages, and I have video proof of it from many weeks ago.
Oh, no, that's fine. I mean, but he is close. But if specifically him hitting a crossbar when he reacted brilliantly to a chance.
Yeah, he's great.
Is the reason you took him out. You need to reassess why you're taking a player out your team, I think.
I think,
but
also, I think Spurs pre-season has been really good, and Kane has been the standout. And the impression I'm getting at the moment is back to Kane days, where it's not will he score, it's how many will he score. And that's a Kane I want. And I haven't tried having both, because if I had both, as we spoke about premiums, I would not have Salah. And I do not want to live in a world this season where I don't have Salah.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite interesting because we're now going to move on to my segment, which is about midfielders that are between 8 and 10 million, which I have none of. But it's going to be interesting to actually talk about those and maybe give me a little bit of FOMO to go, oh God, I don't have any of these, and maybe start moving things around. I doubt I will, but it's going to be interesting to talk about them anyway. So we've got the best 8 to 10 million midfielders here. We've got Mahrez at the top. And we've got Sterling, who's second, who's obviously at Chelsea now. We've got Foden, Mount, Diaz, Saka, Bruno Fernandes, Bowen, Maddison, and Kulusevski. Now, for me, the value of these players here in this 8 to 10 million is just remarkable. Like, you've got players here that can get you 20 plus points in a week. You've got players here that can get you, 20 to 40 points in 3 weeks. They really do. They can bang, these players. And there's a few of them on penalties as well, which obviously helps. But when we're having a look at them, for me, Mahrez isn't going to be in a lot of teams because, like I said, he's never nailed. Even if he's the only fit player in the team, he's never nailed. Sterling, I'm seeing in very few teams because obviously he's 10 million and he's 10 million at Chelsea, and his preseason hasn't been amazing apart from one goal that kind of rebounded off of him. Foden hasn't played an awful lot in preseason because he wasn't vaccinated, so couldn't go on tour with him. Mount is somebody that has been in and out of my team, and I feel like Mount is somebody that I either go with James or I go with Mount. I really like Mount. 11 goals, 11 assists last season. Got the minutes. He's that focal point in their team in terms of he's always there. Diaz is somebody that's in an awful lot of teams as well, but I think we've already spoken about Diaz a little bit already. Saka we've spoken a little about already before already as well. Bruno Fernandes I haven't seen in anybody's team because of this uncertainty with Ronaldo. If Ronaldo stays, Bruno's a kind of a no-go. Bowen was absolutely incredible last year, but he's 8.5 million. It's a shame he's not 8 million. Would have been nice if he was 8 million.
Look at his stats there. Why would he be 8 million? He's got 17 assists and
because
12
now
goals.
No one picks him.
He should be 10 million.
12 goals last season and 17 assists. And then Maddison, who's looking like he's being linked with Newcastle, and Kulusevski at the bottom there. I mean, if I ask you guys, Joe and Seb, just to pick... Joe, we'll start with you. If you pick two people here that you think are the standout options in the 8 million bracket, and then Seb, unfortunately, has to pick another two.
Right. I think in terms of my team and who I'm particularly going for, it's Mount, because it's either Mount or James. I want one of them. And so it's whether Harvey Barnes goes up to Mount or down to Neto, and then I get James in. As the second one, I would say probably Saka. But we've got Martinelli, so not for me. So I would say Mount and Foden would be the best two.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah. And what about you, Seb?
Yeah, nice. I mean, I love Mount for the season long. I love Foden for the season long. So I'll go short term instead then. I probably do like those two longer term. But I'll go Diaz to start with. And I guess Saka out of them, although we've discussed the Martinelli thing. I think they're great to start, and then Foden and Mount are season keepers, if that's the right way to put it, although I don't really mean that.
Yeah. See, it's funny, so for me, my two best, I say best because I think Mount is in there as well, but I think Saka's probably the best in terms of fixtures as well. But obviously, there's hardly anybody's going for him because of Jesus, because of Martinelli. Kulusevski, 5 goals, 9 assists in 14 starts last season. Incredible numbers. And obviously, he's definitely going to be starting game week 1 because Richarlison's suspended, isn't he? So Richarlison's the one that's going to be pushing him a little bit. But he's just a forgotten man. He really is. Like, he was incredible last year.
He is the solution to the wanting to get an attacking Spurs asset against Southampton and still having Haaland. You can get your 8 million. And I think my initial draft, when the game launched, my instinct was Kulusevski and Haaland. Yeah. And I've gone off that because game week 1, yes, he'll start. Then you're going to see the rotation, and will he be on the pitch will he even make 60 minutes? I don't know. So it's just too much up in the air. I want to see what's going on with Spurs and the assets on the wings, the wing backs, and Kulusevski. And Son, you would assume, is going to get more minutes, but I don't know. Maybe he'll get subbed off a little earlier than perhaps he was last season. I don't know. Lots of unknowns there. So Kulusevski's in that big unknown Venn diagram that's in my head.
Yeah. Right. Now we're excited now because we're going on to something that's new this season. So it's something that I suggested last year and we've gone with it, and Seb is going to be kind of running with it this year, which is going to be awesome. So basically this season we are going to have a community team, and I've been sending out a few tweets recently with polls on to try and get us to come up with our community team. So this community team is been chosen by you so far. We've got a few more positions that we need to pick, which we're going to go through today, and Seb's going to talk to us about how we're going to do that. Now, this community team is going to be inserted into a league, which is the community league. The code for that league is in the description of this video. If you want to join the league, go for it. We want as many people in there as possible. And basically, you are going to be picking the moves for this team every single week. But myself, Joe, and Seb are going to come up with a move each, and you're going to vote on that move. So we're still going to have kind of control of it, but you're going to be picking what that move is. And then your job is basically to try and beat this team in the league that we have set up. So wherever this team is in the league, if you're above it, well done. If you're below it, what you're doing, you need to listen to us a little bit more. So Seb, we already have Alexander-Arnold, Cancelo, James, Neco Williams. We've got Salah, we've got Andreas Pereira, we've got Haaland and Greenwood. So we're basically template FC at the moment, aren't we? But you're going to talk to us a little bit about how we're going to put a few more players in there if you weren't frozen in your screen right now. There you are. Hello. Oh.
If you can hear me, I might need to hand back over to you, I'm afraid, because my connection is being very poor. I will try and drop in if I can.
No, that's fine. So basically,
so sorry,
Joe,
thank you.
No, that's all right. So Joe, if we do it then, basically we need to pick another striker, which I think we're going to be struggling to not go with Jesus, aren't we? We're going to... Seb, can you hear us? Can I just double check? No?
That's fine. I can wing it.
Oh, you can. Brilliant. So Seb's going to be writing down the options, basically, and then you guys get to vote once the stream is finished. So up front, Joe, and we can do this really quickly as well. I'm assuming what we're going to go with. Jesus is going to be the top option.
Jesus, put him in. Just put him in.
Just put him straight in.
Don't ask anyone.
So Seb will come up with two other options, but we're assuming Jesus will be the main one there. Midfielders, Joe. So we've already got the two premiums there with Salah and Haaland.
Yeah,
this is. We're going to have a midfield.
Well, basically, the choices would be Martinelli. I think should be definitely in, but you've got the likes of Neto, Bailey, all those players that we've mentioned as well. They should be in the mix, and people should vote on those. The defenders, Perisic, possibly a Manchester City double up, possibly a Chelsea double up, possibly Robertson as well, and Liverpool double up there. So and goalkeepers as well, your choices are non-playing goalkeeper against the likes of, say, Edison or Ramsdale, or you could go for something that I'm looking at, an actual goalkeeper rotation of Sanchez and Ward.
Yeah, lovely stuff. So basically, Seb will collate all of that together. He'll chuck out the polls today, and this team will be locked in pretty much in tomorrow morning, something like that. Make sure you join the league because we're going to be keeping track of this for the whole season to see how many people can beat this team in the league. So you're kind of making it, and you're also trying to beat it. So we'll see how we get on. But it'd be interesting. I think it'd be interesting to see how this does, because it should finish midway, shouldn't it? It should finish halfway through the league, because everybody's picking the teams, and obviously you're trying to beat it. So we'll see what happens.
I mean, I like this because those who listened to and watched the show last season, we managed collectively a community members team who'd done really ever so well until we managed this team for him, and we did absolutely awfully. I personally really struggled to manage two teams. I do not know how cheeky people have two teams, because I got the teams muddled up many a time. It was very confusing, so I like this.
Yeah, this should be fun. I think it should be really good. Right, my other exciting section, which we've got at the very end, we have got the questions. Are you ready for the brand new screen? Here we go. Boom. So we now have the question section. So this is not going to be quickfire questions. This is going to be the Convince Andy questions. So we're going to ask people in the chat to chuck in your questions. So chuck in as many questions as you can, especially if they're more kind of open-ended questions. So if they're about FPL, brilliant. If they're about football in general, who do you think is going to win the league? Who do you think is going to go down? All that kind of stuff. They would be great to answer as well. And Joe and Seb are both going to have a go at answering the question. Whoever convinces me more and I think gives a better answer gets a point. And we're going to see who gets the most points by the end of the 5-10 minutes. We'll see how many questions we can answer. They could answer really quickly. They could answer really slowly. They could answer massive questions. They could do whatever they want to. But we'll see who can convince Teacher Andy, says Bernardo. Exactly. So chuck those in the chat and we'll get going. There's a lovely little picture here of Robertson with his hand up as if he's got a question.
Just while we wait for those questions to come in, then I've got a question for you. So we've spoken about a lot of players tonight. A lot are in the template, if you will. Who's a player that we haven't mentioned, who hasn't really come up, that you think could come into our squads in a few weeks and shake things up? I will throw Patrick Bamford at you, because that would both change probably people's structure and obviously would change their forward lines. I do think if he gets firing, and he could, 200 points nearly 2 seasons ago, he could be an option. What about you, Andy?
I do, and this is Leeds again, but I do like Aronson. I think Aronson could be a really good player, but I'm going to go with, and it's pretty much the exact same price point as you. I'm going to go with Callum Wilson. I think if he stays fit, I think he could start really well for Newcastle. And Newcastle at home, I talked about it all last year. I really like Newcastle. So unless they sign a striker, which I don't think they will, if Maddison comes, it's even better for him. So I think Callum Wilson's mine.
Have we mentioned Lewis Dunk? 4.5. Brighton defender with goal threat, assist potential, nailed on to start. 4.5. He got a price reduction. It was for injuries last season. So, he's someone that's, I was talking about, dipping a player down to 4.5. So if I don't think Perisic is going to start, Darlow, I quite like for a punt at Manchester United, but Lewis Dunk is the next name on my list, 4.5. I think he's absolutely great value. And I think there could be lots of value in those sort of unfashionable players, perhaps from Brighton.
Lovely. Right. Are you ready then? Here we go. So this is the first one. Who's going to win the inaugural Convince Me Questions competition? Seb is ready. Right, here we go. So P says, Diaz versus Robertson. What is the answer? Joe, you go first.
I think it's Robertson because for a variety of reasons. He's cheaper. He's more nailed on. Diaz, I think there are other options to do in midfield. So you could go for other 8 million options, but you can also get value from the likes of Neto. And I think Robertson and Alexander-Arnold are underpriced this season. They're going to get 200 points just like that. That's just turning up. And I just think they're absolutely essential players to have. And also, Alexander-Arnold's in loads of teams. Salah's in loads of teams. Robertson's not in so many teams, but that could change.
Seb, your turn.
So I guess I will naturally take the other side of that then. I think over the season, Robertson is the right choice, but it's not about over the season. It's about the first few weeks. By the way, you've frozen, so that might be me. So let me know if you can't hear me. I think over the first few weeks, Diaz is the better option with Jota out. And even if he's not out, I think Diaz is preferred there with those fixtures. Joe mentioned Neto. That's not an alternative for Diaz. That's a very different price point. So I don't think that comes into it. I think it gives you the best way to get into that 8 million bracket to start with. And as we mentioned earlier, there's really a 0.5 price difference. You can have James and Diaz versus, say, a Robertson and whatever your midfielder would be instead. So I think for team structure, it's why I've gone there at the moment. And for the first few weeks, it is Diaz, even if you end up on Robertson later.
Interested. Okay, I won't tell you who got the point. I'll tell you who wins at the end. Gopal Ramgobin, sorry if I've destroyed that. Seb, this will be for you first. Says, do you think Man United will get top 4 this season?
No. Next.
Joe?
No, because City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, Spurs, all better, and we'll all finish above them.
Okay.
Manchester United may even finish just below them, may even Leicester, maybe Brighton, even maybe Leeds. Who knows?
Joe, this one's for you from Robert Shaw. Will Undav get 10 plus goals this year?
Maybe. He's a wait and see, though. I don't know whether he's going to get the starts. And I say, will he get them? Because I don't know how many minutes he's going to get. It's Potter at Brighton, and fans of Brighton and those following Brighton in FPL will get increasingly frustrated where he plays players and whether they get minutes. But the thing is, he knows what he's doing, and he gets really good returns out of those sides. So I think ultimately he should start, and if he's getting those starts, I do anticipate he'll get to 10 goals easily. But will he actually start all those matches?
So I am just looking up. So we know Brighton love their XG. So Neil Maupay got 7.7 XG last season. Undev has to get the minutes, of course. So let's say he does, for the sake of argument. I think Brighton, we know they've underperformed in the past. They have a good striker who scored a silly number of goals in Belgium. Yes, in Belgium. But Neil Maupay, Danny Welbeck's decent, but always injured. I think he can better Maupay's XG, and I think he will hit his XG. So yes, I think he can get 10 goals.
We're in agreement, by the way, there.
Yeah, I know. That was weird. Yeah. That was weird, actually. Let's have a look. Nitish Madahar says, do I pick Mount and Rashford or Sancho and Martinelli, Seb?
I wouldn't go with either Man United option, but the first one, because I think Mount is a very good pick, and then Rashford's a bit of a gamble and a slightly cheaper price point, which you can, go down to those cheaper ones with. Whereas, was it Martinelli? Yeah, good. We discussed that. But then Sancho could be great longer term, but those first three fixtures for United aren't that great. I'd be happy to wait and see. So I go with the former just because of that.
Joe?
Yeah, there's a slight flaw in this format, because I agree once again, because that makes very logical sense. Yeah, I was quite keen on Manchester United in some pre-season. I like what I've seen. I still don't think they're top six, but they could be, but we don't know. They're one of those great unknowns. I do think they could offer a lot of value, but they're a long term to have a look at. I need to see at least 3 or 4 games really to work out whether Rashford's back to his best. Sancho's looking like the one, but I'd like to see, and whichever option, have Martinelli and go for that.
Yeah,
there's definitely a world where Sancho's amazing, but yeah.
Charlie Olstead says, who do you think is going to be the top goal scorer after 5 weeks this season?
That's a good question.
So that's going to go with Joe first.
Well, I think a lot of the algorithms have said Ramsdale.
Top goal scorer?
No, sorry, goalkeeper.
I think I might win the point. No,
sorry.
No, whoa. First answer.
Whoa. I thought you said
Seb's
goalkeeper.
Point.
I thought you said goalkeeper. Who will be the top goal scorer?
Yes.
Salah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Seb?
Okay, so for the sake of argument, I will go different and I will say Haaland.
Okay. Right, we'll do 2 more.
Hopefully there's a goalkeeper question next.
Here we go. Hang on. There was a good one I saw just now and I've lost it now. Yeah. MG says, should I leave 1.5 in the bank and go with Jesus, or should I go with Vardy? Rest of the team is set in stone. Seb,
which side do you want, Joe? I'll argue the other side, although I know which one I'd take.
I would be tempted to go for Vardy, but the problem with that is because I do think Vardy will get more points over the first 2, because Arsenal's first 2 are okay, and Arsenal obviously play Leicester, and Vardy has a good record against there, but Jesus as a Arsenal player is an unknown against Leicester, but I think he might have quite a good record against Leicester, and I seem to remember all of those fixtures because they're all very attacking sides. But I would be tempted by Vardy. I certainly wouldn't start with, out of those 2, you would start with Vardy rather than Jesus, because the first 2 fixtures I think marginally favour Vardy. But if you don't want to make any changes to that role, just start with Jesus, because you're going to want him in from game week 3 onwards, I think.
Seb?
Okay, so I'll go start Jesus. Don't keep 1.5 in the bank, though. That's crazy. Use it elsewhere. But yeah, Jesus, I think he probably has similar, if not only slightly worse numbers than Vardy.
Yeah.
And he definitely has better fixtures. Leicester have Arsenal and Chelsea in the first, is it 4? Then Man United later on. Arsenal's fixtures are superior. I would definitely go Jesus. And then I would use that 1.5 elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to change it up, but if you can have either or, it's Vardy over Jesus at the start rather than Jesus.
Oh, lovely. So I'd say Jesus over Vardy.
No, or Jesus. But what I wouldn't do is Jesus and keep 1.5 to get Vardy in when Jesus's fixtures get really good again. So that doesn't make any sense, I don't think.
And last one from Kerry Pollard says, from FPL Fozzie says, how long do you think 5 at the back will last?
I think most seasons it lasts a week.
Yeah.
And loads of people, you get the 5 at the back, the anti-5 at the back brigades on social media. But this time around, I think they've been priced so kindly. And also everyone is going to be wildcarding between, say, 5, 6 and Gameweek 9 very early on. I think the structure is less important. But I would advocate, if you're going to have 5 at the back, to have 2 premiums. I think the teams with 1 premium, and I've seen a few, got 1 premium in Salah and 5 at the back, and spread the money around, but they're without a sort of a Kane or a Son or a De Bruyne, and I don't know if that's gonna. I don't think that's sustainable. So I don't think that would last long. But I think 5 at the back could conceivably last until when people wildcard in game week 6 to whenever.
Seb?
I mean, we have to pick 5 at the back, so the whole season. No, I think
minus point
to go opposite to Joe then. Yeah, reasonable. To take the other side to Joe then, I guess I would say 4 is currently looking the better strategy if we assume 5 at the back is like 5 consistent starters, not even like a rotation option. And partly even just because of Nico Williams. I think there's some significantly good value in that 4.0, which allows you to go elsewhere. So even if you love 5 at the back, you can still play that with Nico some weeks and then have a rotation or have a stronger midfield. We've talked about the 8 million mids. That's maybe how you get your 8 million mid. So I think it lasts no time. I think 4 at the back is more popular to start with.
Right. End of the questions. Would you like to know who won the first week?
No.
Come on.
Not really.
Since we agreed on half of them.
Well, you agreed. It's not about agreeing, though, is it? It's about actually, can you convince me, and how you frame your argument? And the person that framed their argument better and won with a score of 5 points to 2 was Joe. So well done, Joe.
No.
Let's give him a clap. Well done, Joe.
Oh,
no.
I feel in the chat. I'm gonna put that on the mantelpiece along with my XG trophies.
all your
I'm gonna need to see the breakdown of that. You need to see where those points were earned.
There you go. That's the breakdown.
Sounds like it's fixed to me.
There we go.
Oh, nice, cool, yeah, brilliant.
That's science.
Yeah, show your working, teacher.
That's science. Right. We've reached the end. Let me go back to the very beginning screen. We've reached the end. Joe, hope you've enjoyed your evening. First Scoutcast of the year ticked off.
I tell you, it's lovely, and I'm sure you've been looking at some little digits on the screen saying YouTube not enough data or something like that on the screen occasionally with the stream. So good luck with that in future weeks as well. Yeah. And I hope the Yeovil internet survives. It's doing ever so well tonight, I think.
Yes, done all right. And Seb, I hope you enjoyed your evening as well. First night back in the books.
Yeah, so much. It's been a little while. So yeah, it's been great fun. Thank you so much for hosting, Andy. It's been great. You've done a wonderful job. And Joe, congratulations. I'll go away and think about what I've done.
Well, yes, do have a think about what your behaviour.
Lovely. And everybody in the chat, we had over 1,300 people at one point, which is absolutely amazing. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, guys and girls. We will be here again next week. Hopefully looking happy, but we might have lost all enthusiasm for this game after 1 week. You never know. So we will see you again next week. Thank you so much, and we will see you very soon. It's a bye-bye from me.
Bye from me.
Bye.